Welcome to Brain Wellness, the podcast. I'm your host, Mandi NP. What started as all things related to brain health and wellness has morphed into largely brain injury health and wellness, with occasional other neurological topics. My mission remains the same, to help you on the path to a healthier brain. So, without further ado, let's get into the show. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Brain Wellness, the podcast. This is the last episode for 2025, which is really kind of crazy to me that this year has gone by so fast. And when this episode comes out, it will be the final episode of the year. And so that being said, I wanted to take a moment to kind of do a little wrap up and talk about all the things that we have done this year. So as a reminder, we've been here since 2022. I started this show in October of 2022, so it's been around a while. If you're just new to the show now, I do encourage you to go back and look through because we've had some really amazing guests on this show, not just this year, but in the time prior to this year, end of 2022, all of 2023, 2024. We had some really cool stuff. And then wrapping up 2025, this is crazy. So if you've been here, if you enjoy what you're hearing, there's lots of ways you can help support the show. I'll talk about them at the end of the recording today too, but just wanted to let you know again that you can support the show by buying me a coffee. You can support the show by liking it, following it, subscribing, listening week after week, catching up on those episodes that you missed, sharing it with other people. Again, I'll probably ask you to do that again at the end of the show, but all of those things help me get seen and heard by more and more people. And there's just so much good information on this show that it would be a shame not to have more people listen. So yes, I would love people to listen for me so that I can see those numbers grow, but also just to get that information out. So share it, do what you can to help the show grow. I'll share some numbers with you about the growth of this year. So that's really, really exciting coming up. But again, this year has been a really big one for me personally and professionally and for the show. So many really, really good things going on this year. Personally, the really, really exciting parts of this was that in February of this year, I got to go back to working as a nurse practitioner again after my accident back in 2023, where I suffered a traumatic brain injury. And I hate looking at those terminologies for what level of TBI I had because I didn't lose consciousness. So by that definition, it was a quote unquote mild TBI. But we've talked about on so many episodes that mild TBI is only good for that moment of the diagnosis, not for the long-term consequences, because I was left with a lot of long-term consequences that still has me not working full-time. I'm working 3 very full days a week, but it's not full-time as of yet. But in February of this year, I did get to go back to working as a nurse practitioner in a neurology clinic, building a concussion program with the help of a lot of the people that have been on the show along the way. So it's been a really cool process to integrate all of those interviews, the things I've learned from all the people that have been on the show, the people that have done the work before me to create their own programs that help to make mine just hopefully on that same level as what they have. I don't necessarily want to outdo anybody. I just want to be the best that I can be and provide the best care that I can for patients in my area, at least, because being a live clinic here in Minnesota, I am limited. I can't help everybody everywhere with that clinical part of it. And I know there's a shortage of concussion providers really everywhere, but I'm glad that I can help the people that I can in my little region. So here we are with that. Also really exciting things personally this year. I was at a couple of different conferences that I got to present at. I went to the National Traumatic Brain Injury Conference in TBI Awareness Day out in Washington, D.C. back in March. In July, I got added to the board of directors for the Minnesota Brain Injury Alliance. So a lot of really exciting, fun things that I've been able to participate in and do as part of this whole TBI community. So it's really, really exciting. So to wrap up what we've been doing here on the show, we have had 52 episodes, a new episode out every week. I have not missed a week. So of all of those episodes, there's been a lot of concussion topics. There's been a lot of non-concussion topics. So of the concussion topics that I like to throw out numbers. So it was 32 of the 52 episodes we did this year was all concussion related. And we covered multiple things like outpatient management. I talked to several different providers in the outpatient world that do acute management, more chronic management, and how they kind of built their programs what were the big things that they learned, what were the big takeaways that helped them grow and develop their programs, that I then used some of that toward my own programs, which was really exciting as well. We had lots of episodes of the ABCs of concussion, and we'll talk about that a little bit more, but those ABCs of concussion, taking one letter of the alphabet at a time, a couple times two letters of the alphabet when we didn't have as much to cover on those particular letters. Each letter of the alphabet, all the topics that can be related to brain injury as it pertains to that letter of the alphabet. We had a lot of TBI stories from survivors. So sharing their experience, sharing their stories, the challenges they faced, the wins that they got to see, the lessons learned, and things that they can help other people, whether it be the providers listening or other survivors, help them feel like they're not alone, or with the providers, help them get an understanding for what they can do to help people that have a traumatic brain injury. So we've had some really, really fun, not necessarily fun, great stories, great interviews for people that have had those brain injuries on the show here. Not on the show, but they come and talk on the show. You don't understand what I'm saying. And then therapies. We've covered physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, audiology. So all of these different aspects of helping somebody with a TBI to recover. We covered so many of those different topics. We talked about humor as it pertains to recovering from a brain injury. We've talked about different supplements that can be beneficial for the brain. We had the interview about the new drug that's in clinical trials for treating concussion. We talked about acupuncture, functional neurology as it pertains to treating brain injuries, medical legal topics in brain injury, what it looks like returning to work, what happens if we get a misdiagnosis, lots of other things like that. So we've covered so many different topics related to TBI. And then we covered lots of other topics that were more general neurology. That's where the show started, was general neurology. My intent was to cover anything and everything related to brain health and wellness. And as I stated in my new intro, if you notice, we've got a little bit of a new intro. It's morphed a little bit to be mostly TBI, but we still have those general neurology topics in there as well. We talked about reflex in the brain early on. That was the first episode this year. We talked about perimenopause, how those changes in hormones affect our brain. We also, on some of these topics, kind of snuck TBI in there a little bit as well, because they do pertain to that also. We talked about the gut-brain connection. We talked about taking different parts of the brain and kind of digging deeper into them, the cerebellum, the brainstem. We talked about mold exposure in the brain and the idea of neuroplasticity, where we can continue to heal. And that's a topic that comes up all the time when I'm talking to my TBI patients, is this idea of neuroplasticity. We can still improve the brain. Our brain is never stagnant. It is not a concrete thing that it forms and it stays that way. So we have all of this plasticity, this growth area. So it really doesn't matter when you start getting treatment for an acquired brain injury or whatever happened in your brain. You can still improve because we have this thing that we call neuroplasticity. It's really, really cool. We got a little bit focused. We talked about a new glioblastoma treatment with ultrasound guided treatment. We talked about biological dentistry, dementia prevention, sleep medicine, and how important sleep is to our brain, the effects of music on our brain, PTSD, ADHD, we get all the acronyms in there. And then dysautonomia was one of the more recent ones that we really kind of dove into that topic. Again, we snuck in some of those TBI questions in there as well, but that was not the focus of all of those shows. So lots of different topics that we did outside of TBI, lots of topics within TBI. And I'm really, really excited about all the things that we've done. So again, as I mentioned, every Friday a new episode comes out. You guys are used to that here. It comes out on Spotify, on Apple, on YouTube. When I set it up, I set it up to go to like all of the podcasting sites. So I'm pretty sure I'm everywhere. So if you have somebody that listens to podcasts on a different site and you don't know if I'm on there and you want to recommend to them, ask them, ask me, check in. I think I've got everything, but if I don't have all of them, I would like to make sure that I'm on all of them because it's pretty easy to get there. So you can watch me, you can listen, you can do any of the things and try to get in these episodes because I do recommend them. And again, just to kind of wrap up how often I've done the ABCs of concussion, it's been about once a month. Sometimes it goes a little bit longer, but I don't like to do more than that because I like to kind of get all of those other interviews in there too. I could have easily just rushed through the ABCs of concussion, but I really didn't want to do that. So I'm kind of sprinkling that in there about once a month. Are up to letter M was the last one that we did. Next week will be the next ABCs of concussion. So the first episode for 2026 will be the next installment of the ABCs of concussion, and then we'll kind of go from there. Again, just looking at numbers because I like data, including this week's focus, kind of wrapping it up. There have only been 13 solo episodes this year. So the rest of my episodes every week were all interviews with great guests, with lots of really knowledgeable people on this show describing their area of expertise and kind of helping to share their knowledge. I do have a few kind of favorites. I know it's like a parent, they're never supposed to admit their favorite child. And with my children, I have my favorite 28-year-old child. Yes, as a day I'm recording this, my oldest son turns 28 years old. So my favorite 28-year-old, I have my favorite 17-year-old, I have my favorite 16-year-old, and my favorite 13-year-old. So we have our favorites, sort of. And as I tell my children, it's my favorite will actually depend on the moment, how you're behaving, and if you're being really good. So as a parent, you're never supposed to admit that you have favorites. But as a parent of this show, this is my show is my kind of like my baby as well. I do have a few kind of favorites. I know I shouldn't admit that, but they've all been really, really good. But some of these have different places in my heart for different reasons. So episode 118 with Dick Beardsley, this was somebody that I had looked up to in the running community since I was teeny tiny, literally like 2-3 years old, the first time I did a race and got to meet Dick Beardsley. So having him on the show and talk about what it was like to kind of deal with some of these own personal marathons that we have, all of these struggles that we have in life, dealing with those struggles, and how running can actually help us to get through some of those things. Running is a really great form of exercise. So what was meant to be more kind of a running show, we really got into some of those personal struggles. And it was really cool talking with my running mentor that I've had my entire life and having him on the show because that just hit for a different reason. And so I really, really loved that episode 118 with Dick Beardsley. Episode 121 with Dr. Vincent Schaller from the Mid-Atlantic Concussion Group. He was a phenomenal teacher on things that I could do for my own concussion program. And I learned so much from him in that episode. And I hope everybody else that listened to that episode learned a ton as well, because he shared so many different tips and tricks that he learned along the way of making his own concussion program better along the whole Mid-Atlantic coast there. So they cover multiple states. It's a very robust program that they have going out there. And I can only hope to kind of develop something like that here in Minnesota and the Midwest. So really cool that he did that. Very honored to have him on my show to talk about those things so that I could learn from him for that. And so episode 121 with Dr. Vincent Schaller was a great one for learning for that. Episode 129, Mimi Hayes, she was one of my favorite storytellers on the show. So sharing her story of brain injury recovery. She developed this humor as a recovery mechanism, as a coping mechanism, probably. She already had the humor, but she turned it into being a comedian after her brain injury. And we just had so much real talk, and she bounced some of those questions that I had for her right back onto me. So it was really cool that we could kind of bounce those ideas off each other as fellow brain injury survivors and just talk at a different level from that. I've had some great stories on the show, even before my brain injury, from other brain injury survivors. And this one just hit a little different. They all do. I love hearing the stories. I love sharing the stories. My own story was shared back in end of 2023. I love sharing those stories. This one was just probably one of my favorites from this year. So that was 129 with Mimi Hayes. Episode 141, I had Mark Faulkner on from Concrete Creatine. We learned about the use of creatine for the brain, and I loved learning about all of that research with that, how well creatine can help the brain recover after injury. And I'm looking forward to the new research that they have coming out from that. And that's now actually, after having him on the show and talking about it and researching it, trying it myself, that is a supplement that I often recommend to my patients now too, because of the things I learned from that conversation. So I learned things that can help me in my practice too, which is really kind of cool. And then episode 154 with Michael Wyand from Oxia Biopharmaceuticals. That was a really cool episode because it was learning about this new concussion drug that they have. in trials. They've had great success with phase 1 and phase 2, working on that application for the phase 3 clinical trial. And I'm really excited by the idea that this is something that could be coming down the pike for patients that have concussions. It's not going to be a quick turnaround because it's got to go through the clinical phase portion of it, that last clinical trial phase. They need to get the funding for it first. So go back to listen to episode 154 with Michael Wyan, learn more about that concussion drug and just the excitement of a possible treatment that can help people with every symptom that they have with concussion. So that is not at all the end all be all of all of the interviews, because I had some great interviews and there weren't any that I would go back and take away because they were all great learning opportunities. Those were just kind of the highlights, I think, from this year, from my standpoint. That said, I did pull some numbers off of Spotify because at the end of the year, Spotify always gives us this really cool wrapped story, and it tells us where we were in comparison to other podcasts, how we did for listenership, who all came on the show. That's just one of the numbers that I have. So some of these numbers might be even more from other platforms. YouTube, I know, was definitely growing this year as well. And I haven't seen the numbers from the other sites because I post on Spotify first and then it goes out to the other ones. I don't always get the reports from the other sites, which would be really cool if I could see them all. But in 2025, from Spotify, from my Wrapped, the data from that, again, I love data. So I just wanted to share this with you because this is kind of where the tires hit the road. This is where we see what's going on with the show. And it was really exciting to see this Wrapped solution here, to see all the numbers and where they kind of fell out. So without further ado, let's talk about it. So in 2025, my audience for this show grew 95%. It increased by 95% compared to 2024. So many new listeners, such a bigger audience this year than I had the previous year. And I'm so grateful for that. My followers individually were up by 66% from 2024. So lots of people listening, not everyone following. So there's a little hint to you guys. If you're not following the show, please do so because I want to bump those numbers up even more for next year. My top episode, according to Spotify, when we just look at the numbers of how many people listened, episode 144, where we talked about acupuncture and functional neurology with Dr. Ayla Wolf here in the Twin Cities. She's a really great resource, and I've actually started to refer a couple of patients her way also because of a conversation that she and I had even before she came on the podcast, learning about some of the different things that she can do for patients. So that's been a really great treat to add her to my referral list, and also having her as kind of my number one episode on Spotify. 300% more people listened to that particular episode than any other episode this year. So very cool for Dr. Ayla Wolf on that one, and great guest to have on because she is incredibly knowledgeable. She also had a brain injury. So, another provider that has that brain injury background also. So really cool show on that one. Really cool number on this one, how many countries were reached with the podcast. So 20 countries are reached just on Spotify. So again, I can't speak to the other platforms that we have because there were a couple episodes on YouTube that were just gigantic. Also, that was a whole different story in that one. But here on Spotify, 20 countries reached. The top 5 countries were Australia, New Zealand, Canada, the UK, and here in the United States. So those are my top 5 listeners. But again, 20 countries. So there were 15 others that didn't have as high of numbers, but they're still there. The really cool thing, kind of drum roll on this one, being in the top 10 show for the listeners was really kind of cool. For 58 fans, the show is the top 10 in the top 10 list. For 42 fans, this show's in the top 5. And for 13, whichever way you're looking at it, 13 fans, this is the top show. I would love those numbers to increase. I love being in the top 10. I love being in the top 5. I love being the top show. I would love those numbers to be bigger. So let's make my 26 Wrapped show with those numbers even higher. Let's share it. Let's get it out there. I did earn a couple Spotify awards, which was kind of cool to see. So I got a 2025 Rising Star. The growth of this show outpaced 80% of other shows on Spotify. We also got a 2025 Marathon Show. Fans listened to this show 84% longer than other shows on Spotify. In the 2025 Talked About show, we had more comments on this show than 78% of other shows on Spotify. So that's really cool to have all of that interaction, having people listen, having people comment. I love seeing the comments come through and connecting with people that way. So please keep those coming as well. As we wrap up 2025, I'm getting ready for the 2026. I have so many interview invites out to other people. I'm waiting for several people to book their interviews once they've said yes. So I have several yeses that I'm just waiting for those interviews to get booked and recorded, because there's some pretty cool stuff coming here in 2026. What are my plans so far? I'm going to obviously continue with the ABCs of concussion because we have to get through the rest of the alphabet. Again, including next week will be the first one of that one. I did end kind of this year, some last week, I had a support organization from Connecticut on the show here. And my plan is in 2026 to try to get more states covered. So, like the ABCs of concussion that I'm doing once a month, I would love to feature another state once a month. That'll take me a long time. It's going to be more than a year to get all of those in. But I would love to feature at least one organization from each of the states to show how we support our brain injury community across the United States. And then from there, maybe branch out even further and kind of see where we can go. And of course, I also want to have more survivor interviews because it's really important to learn from the people that have had the injuries, that have been there, that are dealing with these struggles on a day to day basis, so that we as providers can learn how best to support these people. How can we do a better job as providers helping those with those injuries? Excuse me, my brain does not want to connect with my mouth at this moment. Helping those with injuries, with those brain injuries, to improve their lives, to feel better, to feel supported. And there are many ways that you guys as listeners can help me with this. So as I mentioned at the beginning, you can subscribe and follow the show. That raises those numbers. It bumps it up on the list so that other people get it as a suggestion to listen to the show as well. Share the show or share individual episodes with other people that you know that think might benefit from it, that might enjoy this show. That also will get those more eyes and ears on the show as well. Keep commenting on the show. As I mentioned, I love seeing those comments come through. I love interacting with people on that. So keep commenting, keep following, keep listening, keep subscribing. Send me requests through the comments or send me a DM on any of the social medias. I'm on, again, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, all those different places. I'm not on X. I'm not on Blue Sky yet. Maybe that's what I need to be on. I don't know. But you can send me a message on any of those for additional topics that you think I should talk about. If there are any particular people that you think I should interview, any other things that you would like to hear or see on the show. And then again, just keep spreading the word. I would love to have this show be a top show for many, many more listeners. I would love for that 2026 Wrapped to come up and have those numbers be even higher. So let's see what we can get done here. As me being this little grassroots show, that I don't have this, unending budget to have this big, incredible podcasting show like some of the other big name people, but maybe we can get me there at some point. I don't know. And then I just wanted to give you kind of a little heads up. Where else can you find me in 2026? If you like hearing the things that I have to say, if you like all the education that I do have some conferences already scheduled on the books. Online, I'll be doing a summit in February 21st from the Carl Brain Injury Symposium. They're based out of Illinois. They've been doing this for several years, and they reached out and invited me to speak about brain injury. So I will be at one virtually presenting. The Minnesota Brain Injury Alliance will be having our professional conference again in April. I'm sending some abstracts to that one. But either way, whether or not my abstracts get submitted, I will be there because I'm on the board and I love to learn, and I'll be at the conference anyway. And then the Minnesota Association of Rehab Professionals MARP conference in April, I will be presenting at that one also. And then I've got some things in the works for national and international conferences. There will be more to come on those once I have more information secured on those, because I all the way up to my head deep in TBI care now. So I have jumped in head first. If you know me personally, if you've listened to the show much and you've gotten to know me that way, I am all in on things when I'm in them. It's not as I talk to my kids, it's not a half-ass type of thing. It is a whole ass type of thing. I put my entire self into whatever it is that I'm doing, whether it's my emotions, good or bad, since the brain injury and before, but whether it's my emotions, my job, whatever it is, I am all in, and I am all in with TBI care, trying to improve the care that other people receive, the care that we provide, just trying to be the best provider that I can be and the best educator, the best advocate that I can for brain injury. So I greatly appreciate all of the guests that I've had on this year. If you didn't get a mention from me, I apologize. That you do have a great episode as well. So everyone has had a great episode this year and previous years. I really have been blessed with amazing guests on my show, and I hope to continue being blessed that way as well. But we have covered so many amazing topics, and I thank you all for being here. And I just ask that you continue to be here, continue to spread the word, and let's see if we can share this information with even more people. Again, thank you so much for making 2025 such a great year on the Spotify numbers, especially. But just for me personally, I really have enjoyed every episode that I have produced on this show. I learned something from everybody that comes on, even if it's a topic that I felt like I knew really well, I still learn something new. So that whole adage of you learn something new every day, I absolutely do on this show. And there are times when I'll walk up from my basement recording podcast area here, and I walk up and I'm like, oh my gosh, that was just such an amazing episode. And I do that so often. I think my family probably just thinks I'm crazy because I probably say that about every episode now. But every episode I learn something new, and I'm just so thankful and grateful to have all of the amazing guests that I have. And of course, my solo episodes, they've been pretty good too. So thank you all for being here. Have a great holiday season, whatever holiday it is that you celebrate. And I hope that 2026 starts off with a bang for you. And let's do some great things together this next year. Thanks, guys. See you next time. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Brain Wellness, the podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, I encourage you to subscribe, leave a comment, and share it so that others can benefit. Please also consider supporting the show by buying me a coffee. The link is in the show notes. You can also go to www.brainwellnesssolutions.com to catch the latest info and get links on all of the social medias there. See you next time.